Nick Carlson, AYR's Vice President for Events, sitting in the front. We're not really going to do like this is not a debate, but just to try to keep us moving along, we're going to have a soft set of time direction. So,
a gentle hint.
Yes, a gentle hint. Well, yes. So we're going to go ahead and kick it off, and we'll start off with an easy one. Why are each of you, when did you first identify as a Republican? And why?
All right, well, thank you. Appreciate the opportunity being here. Once again, my name is David Bachman, and I've been involved in the Republican Party since I was, in high school. So, worked in the Teen Republicans up in Cherokee County. That was very exciting. We put together the Teen Republicans there. I was the chairman of the College Republicans out at the University of West Georgia, where we put together one of the largest statewide organizations. I was on the steering committee for Students for McCain, played the bad kid in 2 of Governor Perdue's re-election commercials, so, I take credit for his re-election. And, it's a great party. The Republican Party has a big tent. Sometimes we're told we don't. But it's something that we should always strive to welcome people of all walks of life and all backgrounds into the party, because every voice has a meaning, and this is where it can be heard. So thank you.
Thanks. I have always been a Republican. One of my earliest memories was when I was first learning to read. I was 4 years old, and I was about on eye level with the bumper on my grandparents' Buick, and it had a Goldwater sticker on there. So I didn't realize at the time they were kind of indoctrinating me, but as I just came along, that's just always been my bent, is towards conservatism. And the Republican Party, it never occurred to me to register any other way, and I've been a Republican my whole life, and maybe we'll talk later. I've never contributed to a Democrat that I've known of. I've never voted for a Democrat that I can recall. I did in one presidential election not vote for the Republican, and we need to talk about that. But I think that if you go out there with optimism and you talk to people about, if you believe in the competence and capability of people, you might be a Republican and not even know it. I think the Republican Party has a lot bigger reach than, like David was saying, the press might want you to think that that we are a party that excludes others, but we're not.
Right, to me, I have a different perspective. I think that is all just rhetoric until you vote. And when you vote, like our legislators, when they vote, we can tell whether or not they are committed as conservatives who uphold a Republican platform, or are they just marketplace opportunists looking for a way to make a living and get their little 15 seconds of fame, a la Donald Trump or whomever might be trying to get fame. But, social media wasn't a very big thing when I was a young person. I'm 51 years old now. And so my estimation as to when I became a Republican was when I first voted Republican. Because before then, I was just like many other people who have share the hue of skin that I share, and that I was a conservative, I was a Christian, and I was raised on a farm, and my parents taught me to say one man, one woman makes a family, and all that kind of stuff. And so I assumed that I had my ideology matched the Republican Party. But I did think that the rest of my family were voting Democrat. And when I first voted, I'd been heavily influenced by Ronald Reagan. And so I wanted to vote Republican.
And how do you keep the microphone, Leo?
Sure.
So of your friends who are Democrats, what reasons do they cite for being Democrats?
Well, when I came out of the closet as a Republican, I'm not sure I have a whole lot of friends that are still Democrat. No, I actually do have friends that are Democrat. I don't think the reasons that they may say that they're not Republicans are similar to everyone else's. One, they may say that it doesn't matter, that the integrity in Washington, D.C. is low on both ends, and it really doesn't matter. Everyone's a marketplace person that just sort of managing themselves to keep power and influence. That's one reason is there's cynicism about politicians, that they just stay where they are. And, another thing that they say is that, just like we're dealing with an issue in Newton County, Newton now, where Republicans, like other politicians, often say really stupid things. But when we say stupid things about race or gender, it seems that we get a lot more attention. And so those are the reasons that I hear mostly.
Same question?
Yeah,
Tell me the question again, what was it?
Why do your friends vote Democrat? Why did they say they vote for Democrats?
I think that my friends who are Democrat, it's kind of the same thing we hear from the media. It's a constant drumbeat of if you are a smart person or if you are a empathetic, caring person, you must vote Democrat. So if you care about the environment, you can't possibly be a Republican. If you're open-minded about gay and lesbian issues, you couldn't possibly be a Republican, and you just fill in that blank all the way along. And so as people identify with one of those issues or another, if they're constantly told you can't possibly be a Republican, that's how you end up with friends who are Democrats. And so we need to reach out to them and go, oh, but yes, but let's talk about the issues that really matter, which are, you know, the financial issues or the issues that are really the more core Republican values.
Well, I don't have any friends who are Democrats. I have a lot of acquaintances that are Democrats. I don't like to keep them around. But no, in all honesty, I mean, I think we all have those acquaintances or friends who vote for Democrats, especially in the gay community. I mean, who has been the longtime advocate of gay rights? It certainly hasn't been the Republican Party. But at the same time, I asked those same people, I said, wait a second. The president and your party was in charge for what, 4-6 years, and they weren't able to do anything for you. You know, it took a Supreme Court ruling. So why do you keep donating to these same Democrats who haven't done anything for you? You know, let's look at the bigger issues. Yes, that's one part of your life, but I mean, specifically in the gay community, we're all hardworking people. You know, we bring home a lot of money. You know, certainly people want to keep that. So the Republicans have a lot to offer to everybody.
Well, thank you. We're going to try to go with individual questions right now, and Representative Beskin, you haven't started off the question yet. At our last meeting, Todd Green came in and he pointed out the Democrats carried the women's vote but lost the men's vote. Why do you think the vote broke that way in the 2014 election?
I forgot when Todd said that. Was that a presidential year that he was talking about? Was he talking about the 2012 presidential election when, or maybe for the Senate election last year?
He was certainly meeting in the 2012 election.
Right.
There are also some of that breakdown in Georgia in the 2014 election.
I think I think the Democrats have done a masterful job of doing a big PR campaign and targeting women and the constant drumbeat of, if you're a woman, you could not possibly vote for Republicans. Do you remember that the commercial about Julia? That was so exploitative when the Democrats in the presidential campaign in 2012 came out with this hypothetical woman, Julia, and the government was going to take care of her every moment from birth to the grave. I think that's a message that we as Republicans need to get out there and say, that's not our philosophy. We're the party that believes that people are capable and competent. Really, the Democrat message is, if you peel it back, it's really a message of incompetence. It's a coalition of the liberal elite who are in charge and everybody else that they have to convince you're not capable of doing that for yourself, or you're not competent enough to do that for yourself. So, unfortunately, I think we as Republicans, we're not willing to go out there and talk to women and get them to understand the irony of the position, and to talk about issues that really matter to women, of children, education, taxes, and jobs. The Republicans have all the right answers on that. So the numbers were more women voted for Democrats, but we need to turn that around, and they should not.
And Dr. Gray just corrected me. There was single women predominantly wrote, married women slept and went Republican. Thank you for correcting me. Leah, depending on polling data, approximately 90% of black voters picked Barack Obama for president. As the Georgia GOP's Director of Minority Engagement, how do you connect with voters who see the world very differently from the people in this room?
How do I connect with voters who see the world differently? Well, those people who voted for Barack Obama, I think of many of them, some of them actually who had formerly voted Republican, I think that's one of the things we overlook. We're trying to be part of history. As a matter of fact, the Democrat Party has a little saying now, and they say, be on the right side of history, as though making history is more important than being principled. And so part of it is that you challenge these people on how illogical such statements are. That, why don't you be on the right side of history and be the first person to go bankruptcy, to have bankruptcy 10 times? If you want to make history, there's all kinds of horrible things you can do in your life in order to make history, including choosing Barack Obama as your president. So, that's one thing that we have to do, is we have to challenge these kinds of social currents that move through, that you just want to hop on the bandwagon just because that's the current movement. And so, in dealing with those people who voted with commitment to him, it's like, okay, you had your fanciful moment. Maybe you voted in 2008. If you voted for him in 2012, I'm not sure what you were thinking about when you did that. But now, let's talk about pragmatic things. Let's talk about things that matter, things like your pocketbook, things like social sustainability, fiscal sustainability. Let's talk about those things and get real about these things. You've had your moment, you've had your first. Let's get on with making sure we get something that works. I'm encouraged by it because I was at an event not long ago in downtown Atlanta, all African Americans except for Angeline. I think she was one of the people there. And somebody said, we need to make sure we keep a black mayor in Atlanta. And somebody else stood up, it was an older African American gentleman, and he said, no, we need to make sure we have a good mayor in Atlanta. And I think that we're on our way out of this fanciful, wishful sort of voting that we've seen.
And David, for years I've heard some people say that they just would not support Republicans because of gay marriage, or that the Republican Party was just not sufficiently embracing the gay community. How do you think the Supreme Court's ruling on gay marriage will affect those people?
So we are talking about people who are looking in at the Republican Party and saying, how are they going to embrace our party? So that's something I certainly think that we should have a conversation about as we move forward. I mean, this is obviously a big issue as we move into the presidential election next year with the recent Supreme Court ruling. Where do the Republican candidates stand? Is it something that some of our candidates will continue to fight to draw the baseline to come out and vote, or is it something that we'll start seeing an evolution within our party, kind of to come to an agreement that, okay, the Supreme Court has issued their ruling on marriage equality. Is that something that we're going to embrace and move forward with as a party? And there's some interesting polling data that's come out that's been compiled by 5 GOP pollsters that says 57% of voters now agree that with the Supreme Court ruling, including 39% of Republicans. What I think is so interesting about that, since most of us here are millennials, is that 74% of millennial voters ages 18 to 34 agree with the Supreme Court ruling. So I think those are interesting numbers and something certainly that our candidates should consider as we move forward into the presidential election. Let's embrace the concept because it's here to stay. And it's not going away. And I personally am thrilled with the ruling. I know several people in this room probably are not, and that's okay. It's okay to disagree. But I don't want to see our party push people away and push the family members of a gay person away just because they don't agree with the Supreme Court ruling. Let's embrace the concept and move forward.
David Bachman, how do you keep the microphone? You've been involved in campaigns. I mean, you mentioned 2 of them that you've been working on. Do you think we need to change our current approach to campaigning and volunteer deployment?
Yes. Of course, technology was huge for Barack Obama's 2 campaigns. One area that I will go ahead and say, I personally turned a hobby into a successful online licensed small business. It's called Neck Candy Tyco, and it's located here in downtown Atlanta. In fact, Mayor Kasim Reed has tweeted about my breast cancer awareness neckties, and I call that partisan, not bipartisan. And so, you know, for one, America is a great place. You can do whatever you want to do and be successful at it. Now, in terms of implementing a successful campaign strategy, I work for AT&T Corporate on the side, and we have amazing business solutions that are available to political parties. And I've reached out to the Georgia GOP and to every political party in the country, Republican and Democrat, just to engage, in my mind, which party is more accepting and friendly and warm to technology. So we have this toolkit that these parties can use to text in people. And do you know how many Republican parties, out of all the Republican parties I've contacted, do you know how many have gotten back in touch with me? AT&T Corporate. This is a Fortune 11 company. We have been sponsors of the DNC in Charlotte and the RNC back in 2012 in Tampa. Okay, this is a big company with huge business applications. I've had one Republican party reach out to me. You know, what's going on here? And I've had probably 10 or 15 Democratic parties reach out. I mean, come on, this is something that we need to embrace, is technology. We've got to be on the cutting edge. Yes, Facebook and Snapchat and Instagram, I incorporate all those into my personal business. And those are something that the Republican Party certainly needs to take advantage of moving forward to reach out to our voters, our volunteers, our party members, and really capitalize on that opportunity.
And Representative Beskin, you just emerged from a very contested primary, a tough general election fight. What lessons have you learned that we should be doing better going forward?
I think to follow up on what David said, the question about technology available to candidates, it's really, there's two different things. There is technology that is available out there through companies like yours or through the parties, but a lot of it is very candidate driven. And so I tried to jump on board and do as well as I could to try to maximize social media. I think I did a good job with my sign of the day thing, and a lot of people followed it, but so much of it, we do hear all the time at the state party level about the better phone system we have now, and you can have volunteers walking door to door for you, and they'll know the household that you're walking up to and the voting history of that family, and there's no doubt we're light years better, but there's also no doubt that Barack Obama ate our technological lunch in 2008, and that was part of the reason that he won that election, and that was in the past, but we've got to make sure that we win this 2016 presidential election coming up. And I think Mitt Romney did a much better job in 12 with his technological outreach. And so as we're looking at the 16 candidates that have now declared for president, I think one of the things you need to ask yourself is which of those people can be tech savvy and can work across all those platforms and who can reach out to millennials. And nobody is going to be able to step in and do that for the candidate. So that's the important thing we all need to be thinking of, is who is going to be our candidate and can that person win?
Leo, you're in the middle of it. Welcome to Georgia GOP.
Sorry I didn't return your call. You know, 50% plus one. Generally speaking, when consultants are hired on by a political candidate, that's their focus, 50% plus one. We need to make sure that my candidate wins, and they do what's pragmatically necessary in order to achieve that, and they spend their money accordingly. And so technology, especially if you're in the southern, south of the Mason-Dixie line, if you've been winning a lot, you tend not to invest in things that are innovative unless it's absolutely necessary in order to win. I mean, that is the challenge of minority engagement. Minority engagement itself is innovation because the party hasn't had to do it for a very long time. So you can think of minority engagement like a new technology, you know, and that we've never done it, we don't know how to do it. We're like, well, how do I talk to a black person? What do you mean? What kind of question is that? You know? But there are people who ask that question every day, and I have to help them with that. So it really is a matter of pragmatism when it comes to what kind of tools we're doing. We are gearing up differently now because the demographics are changing, and some of the races that we are almost assured of winning, we are no longer assured of winning those races. And so I think that you'll continue to see, as Representative Beskin has mentioned, lots of new technology being used. We have the Advantage app that is still on my phone now, in my pocket now, that we use for walking neighborhoods and tell us what's happening inside of the house as soon as we get there. My latest intern advertisement went out, and it is actually asking for people who have social media skills, technology skills, big data skills, app development skills. So we're catching up, and because we have to now. And yes, winning makes you lazy. And so we kick butt a lot in the South, and we've gotten lazy.
So one more question before we start opening up and taking audience questions. Do you see a path for Republicans to win the presidency in 2016, and what is that path?
It's probably going to be about 20 different paths. When we're all done, we're going to have so many candidates that the best ideas will rise to the top. The way people respond to those ideas is going to give us like just a constant focus group, so that whomever ends up the final people coming out of our primary, they're going to be really strong with what message they need to carry. It's going to be well honed, well researched, and I think that we, because of the fact that we have such a strong bench, we are looking really good. I'm looking forward to Cleveland next week, I guess, and seeing how that first debate goes, but I'm really excited about our chances.
I think we can definitely win in 2016, and there's two aspects to this. The candidates that we have that are declared, and then the presumed Democrat nominee, which I think we all think is going to be Hillary Clinton unless something else happens. If you look back to the history of presidential politics, the upbeat, optimistic, positive candidate always wins. And I don't think those are adjectives any of you would use to apply to Hillary Clinton. I mean, she's just kind of the Debbie Downer, you know? I mean, she might even have a great idea, and she can convince you that it's not, you know, so then I think we need to analyze each of the 16 candidates that are in the race and think which of those people will be a good candidate. Not just which one has the best ideas, but which one of these candidates can go out there and pull people in and get people to like their story and vote for that candidate. And I mean, really, just think back in your mind to all the pairs of candidates. You had Jimmy Carter and was that Ronald Reagan? Is that when we first got Ronald Reagan? Yeah. Okay. So then it was Ronald Reagan and Jimmy Carter, 80. And so then, oh gosh, remember George W. Bush, H.W. Bush, and Michael Dukakis? Yes. He was just not very energizing. So really think through each election, and that's where we are. Let's go get a candidate that we might not be all of our first choice. But when that person emerges from the primary, we need to all get behind that person.
Thank you, Beth, and I definitely second those words. I mean, the energy is in the Republican Party right now. Look how many candidates we have. We have 16. Is that how many we have now? 16. 17? 17 candidates, and the Democrats have one. So, you know, that's amazing. I think it's important that since the primary process is beginning, you know, within in August with the first debates, you know, we've got to start really seriously looking at these candidates and narrow down which one's going to be most effective against the Democrats in 2016. I mean, I'm not impressed by Hillary Clinton either. And she can even put up a rainbow logo on Facebook, and no, it's not going to excite me. So, you know, we have a lot of talent in the Republican Party, and I certainly am going to base it off their success rate. I like a governor, you know. Personally, I like a governor because they've managed that executive level experience. I think we need that in the White House, especially after our community organizer who's done 95% of everything wrong. So it can't get worse than that. So I'm certainly looking forward to the 2016 presidential election, and you know, let's get the ball rolling. It should be a lot of fun.
I've got a couple more questions, but let's go ahead and start taking questions from the audience. And Brad, I can put you on the spot because I know you had a question, and we'll just everybody else just raise your hand from there.
I'm happy to have this opportunity. Actually, that's my state representative. And we in Buckhead are very, very, very proud to have. And I actually went through a little campaign of myself in the 11th Congressional District this year. And I will tell the folks in this room, we got some Cobb folks here, we may have some Cherokee folks here. You grew up in Cherokee, went to high school in Cherokee. I think Michelle, I think we actually live in the most conservative congressional district in the entire state of Georgia.
I think we do.
Amen. I mean, we do. Barry Loudon, when people say that Barry Loudonville is not conservative enough, you guys are very conservative. Fulton County represents 6% of the 11th Congressional District. So this question is to all of you, because I went through this, and I ran on a unity message, meaning, hey, how do we bring everybody together? Because I'm going to tell you something. If we don't have conservatives of every stripe, social libertarians, social conservatives, folks that are strong on foreign policy, folks that are strong on law and order issues, we cannot beat the $2 billion that Hillary Clinton is going to bring forward. So how, and with all of you standing here today, how do we keep guns not focused on each other and focus on the enemy? Because I tell you, at the end of the day, we've got to have everybody. And when we're fighting amongst ourselves, we're going to lose. So please answer that.
Ladies first.
I'm going to yield to you know, Brad, you know, you're right. I was, last night, I was in Winder, Georgia, way at the top, and then I had to go across to Cherokee for a meeting this morning early. There's incredible diversity within the 11th, but at the same time, I live in Smyrna, right on the edge of the 11th. A little different. We're a place where folks will say it's okay to take $360-some million of your tax money and build a new stadium. So quite different depending on where you are. And yes, you're right. Barry Loudonville is argued to be a moderate in some people's estimation, which is quite amazing. You know, I think one of the things that we should look at just, again, from a strategic point of view in bringing people together is focusing more on policy, being more policy-centric. Because then it's less personal then. It's more about the ideas and solutions than it is about the person and whether or not you think that person is the right person or you believe in that person. And then improving their policy by looking at best practices. So we need to get smarter, in other words. We need to get more intelligent about politics. One thing that happens amongst Democrats, and I don't think a lot of intelligence is involved in this, but they follow social trends. Whatever is hot, they jump on it. If social justice is hot, they jump on that. If, you know, whatever it is, they jump on it, they go with it, they don't question it. But it's all right for us, too, to look at trends. What's hot? If search and seizure is hot, and civil forfeiture is hot, if we're looking at that and we can see, well, that's kind of a thing that conservatives seem to be interested in, jump on that. If free market principles are hot, and you think that supporting businesses like Uber is the hot, cool thing, we need to jump on that. So we can't get behind politicians or candidates, at least get behind things that are free market oriented. Get behind things that are about conserving and property rights. Get behind some of the policy issues, just like, you know, Republicans had a hard time and we were really confused as to whether or not we wanted to deconstruct education by starting an education reform movement. I mean, we've been really, really hesitant to jump in on policy issues that might be easy for us to become trendy, but trendy in an effective way. I think that's one of the ways you bring people together. I know that for the charter school moms out there that were African American, they supported Governor Deal just for that.
Thanks. I think we need to focus on what we all have in common and not I think that the Democrats have done a really good job of picking an issue and driving it as a wedge and picking off one issue after another and convincing the public that the Republicans do not represent you on that particular issue. But we need to focus more. We have to get smarter. We need to figure out what they're not talking about. They're not really very loud or vocal about education reform like Leo is talking about. That's the most important thing to every person out there, and certainly to every mom, is their child's education. So we are really driving education reform. And here's one. If you listen to educators now, they're talking about an intractable problem of teaching children of poverty. And it's almost as if they're saying it takes a different approach to educate children who come from an impoverished background. And I think we could all agree that is true, but they're not offering solutions for what that looks like. And I've asked some of my friends who are educators, well, tell me about this problem. How did this problem come about? For example, here in the Atlanta public school system, I said, tell me how many of your free and reduced lunch children come from a home where the parent, presumably a single parent, possibly a mom, how many of those children's mothers were dropouts from APS? And they looked at me, they don't have that statistic, and I said, well, I think you better go back and get that statistic, because what you're doing is creating intergenerational poverty. The problems that we face today are really created by the school system that is failing children and parents. So we need to look at issues. Another one, I thought candidate Rand Paul, you might think about him like you want, but I thought he had a brilliant answer when the news media tried to pin him down and said, Senator Paul, when does life begin? And he turned around and he said, you go ask the Democrat Party when life begins, and if they will distance themselves from partial birth abortion, and then we can have that discussion. And we certainly had the table all set for us to have that discussion right now, as we've seen these ridiculous, disgusting stories in the news this week about the transfer of fetal body parts for, if not selling body parts, transferring them for an agreed upon price. And then the one that came out yesterday was even worse than the first one, where the woman's saying, I think I'm going to get a Lamborghini or something. I mean, the left is deafening on this. We need to figure out where we have an opportunity and take it, because we do too much apologizing and too much playing catch up.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and I have 2 points to make on that. I think it's important that we unify divisions within the party, especially as we approach our general election next year, and also that we provide smart legislation. So, number one, in unifying the party, the Republican Party is certainly very diverse. You have the Tea Partiers over here, you have the centrists over here, you have the more liberal side over here. Okay. And then on the Democratic side, everyone is it's the Walking Dead. Everyone's a zombie. Taylor and I were talking about that earlier. It doesn't matter what Hillary Clinton or President Obama says, everyone falls in line and they agree with it. It's like magic. Whereas in the Republican Party, we have a debate, and that's certainly a healthy thing. So I would say that yes, certainly have the conversations. Now is the time to do it, but when time comes, when push comes to shove, we all need to be on board. And number two is smart legislation, especially here in the state. Last year, we had a controversial legislation. It was RFRA, and it was controversial nationwide. And I would just like to point out that legislation has failed twice now in Georgia. I was very outspoken about it and rallied with several hundred people at the state capitol. And I was very passionate about it because in my eyes it refused to serve law unless there is a non-discrimination clause involved. And so for the Republican Party here in Georgia, we saw the fallout in Indiana. Mike Pence had to go and defend the state after millions and billions of dollars was pulled out. Embarrassing for him. We don't want that to happen again this year or next year in 2016 for the state of Georgia. Otherwise, we'll see every major news network park out in front of the state capitol. And what will they be branding the Republican Party? They'll say we're bigots, they'll say we're homophobes, and then Hillary Clinton will come down here in a stump speech and raise $1 million. So I would just like to say that. Unify at the end and smart legislation.
I'd like to be able to let to invite as many questions as we can with the limited time left we have. So if you have a question, raise your hand. Try to keep your question short and to a question, and we'll try to have the same thing on the panel side. Ruben, you're a YR. Can you please go?
All right. Hey, guys, I appreciate y'all being here tonight, this evening. I think a lot of what y'all said is really true. I'm kind of curious because it seems like with that politics today, it's a zero-sum game with so many people. It's all about either you agree with me on every single issue, you don't agree with me on every single issue, and you're just a horrible, despicable, racist, bigoted, homophobic, whatever person. What are we doing to find commonalities with people, you know, as far as relationships? I think to me that's what speaks volumes is we have to be diverse in our approach and say, hey, you know what, I want to be friends with that guy, I want to talk to that guy, I want to have a relationship with that person where we are basically having a relationship versus this visceral, scorched earth policy of it's us versus them. Because I can say I'm a very conservative person, but I like hearing what y'all have to say too. And I may not agree with everything that all three of y'all may say or may not say, but I still am glad that y'all agree with that.
So, and I agree with the gentleman. You know, if I agree with you on 7 out of 10 issues, then we'll be friends. If I agree with you on 6 out of 10 issues, then we'll be friends. If I agree with you on 2 out of 10 issues, then we won't be friends. And that's how I stand with most of our candidates here, and that's how my approach moving forward.
I actually think Republicans do work well together. I've seen something interesting as I've looked through candidate disclosures over the last number of years. If you go to the State Ethics Commission website and pull up disclosures for candidates and look at what candidates spend money on their expenditures, I've noticed a difference between Republicans and Democrats. It's a generalization, but generally, Republicans don't pay people to go campaign for them. Democrats pay people canvassers all the time. As Republicans, we kind of just expect our friends to help us. Now, I don't know if we're just being, you know, unrealistic or not, but to your point, we have to reach out and we have to meet all of each other so that we can help each other in our campaigns. But I think we're a lot more open, welcoming party than people would give us credit for. Look at the 16 people we have. We have 2 Hispanics, 1 woman, 1 black person, and maybe some other people I haven't even categorized. But I think we're the diverse party. You'll never hear that from the media.
Yeah, I agree with President Beskin. A lot of what you hear about us, about the lack of candor, the lack of critical reasoning that might happen, that we do have. I just think that the narrative out there about critical reasoning, about debate, is such that it's so moved by liberal and the liberal media. They don't want critical reasoning to take place. And so when we demonstrate it, they don't even know what it looks like. And so when we're out there and we're having a robust debate about something, they're just looking at it as one big argument. Obviously, they've never been to my house or the average New York Italian family house where we argue with each other all day, call each other a-hole and this and that and that, and then we hug each other and kiss each other. I mean, so, you know, the kind of candor that we have within party, I just think that, you know, it's described by the media in a way to drive a wedge. So we have to be careful and not drink the Kool-Aid, as they say, that we are divisive and that we have a ton of difference in opinion and all this kind of thing. I agree. I think that we do work well together. But I do think that we also need to just understand that some of this is a sign of the time. Young people in school are not taught logic and reasoning like they used to taught. We're not taught to argue or ask questions of our teachers. I mentor a young man named C.J. Pearson, who's 12 years old, and I can't tell you how many times I've had to advocate for him to get back into school because his government teacher kicks him out because he questions.
Let's go, you sir, and then we'll go to Dr. Redding. That will wrap it up.
Me or him?
All right, you had a question there?
Yeah, but
Okay, we'll get them all and try to stay on the point and ask the questions so we can try to squeeze in everything and be respectful of everybody's time. Please go, Mr. Grace.
Only one of you have to answer my question to save time. Republican Party, honorable people, founded 1854, consisted of abolitionists. 1877, cowards. Republicans 2.0 gave us the Compromise of 1877 that led to the rise of Jim Crow. 1910, Republicans 3.0, which are our royals today, gave us the Federal Reserve Act, which is the central bank, the IRS, and the 16th Amendment. What I would like to know, because I have not heard it mentioned once, is the Constitution. Why Donald Trump is so popular is because he's talking about those things that are being violated that go against the Constitution. Why is it that we as Republicans continue to follow people who have absolutely no regard for the Constitution, which is one of the reasons why we're in the situation that we're in? And I'm gonna sit down, because to your point, you were talking about gays.
Is that your question?
That's my question.
Thank you.
Why?
I'm a follower of the Constitution. In fact, I have a pocket Constitution in my purse. And I agree. We just need to come back to that. That's the original text. So I agree with that. Anybody else?
No, I agree. I think it's the 50+1 issue again. Constitution requires reading. Nobody wants to read anymore. I mean, you know, it requires thought. You have to reason about what you're taking in, and it's just not sexy. And we've got to teach that the Constitution can be sexy, and then therefore people will get behind it and try to be elected through.
Never thought about the Constitution being sexy, but I like that idea. Certainly, I think it's important for our candidates to follow the Constitution, and specifically more so our elected officials, as we've seen it violated over the last 8 years for sure, and even before that. So, you know, they're principles, they're our founding principles, and we need to make sure that we follow those. So, you know, I agree.
Dr. Red.
All right, so prison sentencing reform. Do you know of any Republicans in Georgia who might take up that banner for mandatory minimums for nonviolent offenses, drug offenses, drug offenses? That's kind of talked about Obama leaving the federal prison last week, because he's trying to make that the big Democratic platform. And could that help us gain traction in minority communities or non-traditional Republican communities to kind of advocate for that?
I think we've already done that here in Georgia, and I think Obama stole our playbook, because we passed criminal justice reform 2 years ago, and then we're reforming juvenile justice, and we're working really hard to prevent many of our young offenders from ever entering the prison system, and then to distinguish, as Governor Deal says, to distinguish between those people that we're mad at and those people that we're afraid of. So our prison population has gone down greatly, and so I don't know about, I think there are other people here who practice more criminal law than I do, who know more about the mandatory minimums and the reform of the criminal code, but absolutely, and that's an issue where we need to get out in front, we need to lead, and we need to take the credit for it.
No, I mean, obviously that was my work in connecting with Hispanics, Blacks, Asians, and going into communities in Southwest Atlanta and Augusta, where there's a high prison population in Augusta, in Macon-Bibb County, in Chatham County. That was one of the issues I led with, which was our work in prison reform, Governor Deal's leadership with that issue. And absolutely, sir, that was one of the main ways that I connected with people. So much so that I had about 30 African-American men, 5 of which had been in the prison system, joined me for a meeting with Governor Deal in McDonough during the campaign cycle. Some of them would benefit from our advocacy court work that we are pushing. And it is a national issue now. That is an example of a current that is conservative that might be leading to the reduction of the prison industrial complex that we need to get behind as conservatives.
Georgia was at the 4th most prisoners in the United States. We are the 8th largest state with the 4th most prisoners in the United States. We have flattened our entire criminal justice budget because of what Governor Deal, Representative Beskin, and all the legislators in Georgia have done. Georgia is leading the nation. We cannot let Democrats take this issue away from us, because we are taking nonviolent criminals and putting them into an accountability court system, which gets them where they need to get, and we keep the bed spaces available for violent criminals. So I applaud Representative Beskin, our governor, the entire state, and we cannot let Democrats take this issue away from us.
One other thing I want to say right here before we get to the next question. Governor Deal has really focused on the close connection between high school dropouts and the pipeline to prison. And so, what is it, 70% of the people in our prisons don't have a high school degree, so we need to keep people in high school, get them to jobs, but also, he's actually instituted a new school system within the prison. So is it the 181st school district is within the prison system and is expanding so that all prisoners will have access to education. This year in the legislature we voted for the ban the box, so that employers won't be able to just have a box here, check the box, have you ever been arrested or convicted or whatever. We're really working hard to try to get in front of this issue, and I think, like Brad said, we are. We need to just keep getting that message out there.
Yes, we're going to try to go quickly. Nick and then Christine. Nick, could you ask a short question so we can squeeze everybody?
Sure as I can.
You're a timekeeper, so
You know, we have such a wide mix of districts in this state. You know, like Bath district is the best educated and the fourth wealthiest in the state, and you know, districts that are less so on both counts. But of course, districts have different, expectations for elected officials. How do you see in the party giving room for people to be elected and to hold views that are in line with what their district wants, even if they aren't in line with what other districts may want?
Well, I have an interesting perspective on that because I live a mile away in downtown Atlanta, and you don't see many white queens in downtown Atlanta. So it's certainly a diverse and an interesting place to live in downtown Atlanta. I have encouraged one of my very close friends to run in Midtown as a Republican. He's a gay guy and very much a staunch conservative. Actually, it's kind of, it's very awesome to see how passionate he is for our causes. And he says he won't run because he'll never win in Midtown. Well, why can't you win? I mean, you know, you tout the policies and the principles of smaller government, less, keeping lower taxes and being able to retain what you make, and you can appeal to these voters in Midtown. Why don't you run? Run in the Republican name and be proud of it. So that's something I think, when we have good talent, talent needs to run. Don't be afraid. People are always there to support you.
I agree with that. Districts are diverse, and it's interesting, Brad's talking about the 11th congressional district and how conservative it is, yet part of my district, which you correctly point out is a very affluent district, is within that 11th. And so the people in the 11th have to all learn how to get along. I gave a talk to the Hispanic Association on Corporate Responsibility, and in preparing for that, I went and got the demographics with the help of, I think, the two of you. And House District 54 has the highest percentage of people in the state with college degrees. I think it's 73%. And it has the highest percentage of households who make over $200,000. Now, I think there's one district, Joe Wilkinson can slice the money a little different way so he can claim more money. And we may have some people who live in that very wealthy district too. But there are examples in the legislature right now. There's a Republican, is it Gerald Green, who lives in a majority black district, a majority Democrat district, but people just kind of like him. It's like David saying, just go out there and talk to people. They may like you, so don't assume they won't.
Now, I think that issue of are you electable, whether you should just run because you're passionate about making a change and being a statesman or stateswoman. I mean, if you believe in something, you should do it like breathing. And that's just a fact. Now, the quality of the candidate is really the determining factor there. Hota Costa down in, we just lost her, she was commissioner down in Fayetteville. I've been spending a lot of time down there trying to bridge. But what I'm trying to bridge for you, they're calling Fayetteville racist because they have an at-large voting district. And so they're saying that the black woman can't be elected unless there is in-district voting only. But the fact is that one of her campaign managers was a former chair of the Fayetteville GOP. And that's because of her great ideas. We need to do more in helping develop leaders for the future, people who can fully address solutions in an intelligent way so that they can relate to people regardless of partisanship. And that will help us a lot when it comes to these issues.
Christine, you have the last question from the floor.
All of you mentioned, the party uniting together behind some of these issues that Georgia has tackled, like
why we have to get individually back into the business of caring because I care. Not because he cares or he cares or he cares, but because I care. Not because I'm running, not because I'm looking for a job, but because I care. Because if you care as an individually, what you're going to do is inform yourself about these issues, and you're going to work passionately, regardless of what people say, to inform people about civil forfeiture issues. If you leave it up to politicians, then it's only going to get done if it causes them pain or it gives them pleasure. Because that's what we're motivated by. Pain or pleasure. Votes are pain, pleasurable. Not getting a vote is pain. Getting money is pleasurable, not getting money. So if that civil forfeiture issue doesn't affect them in that way in their district, they're not going to care about them. That's just about off the truth. So, but you have to care about it. Don't hand over the future of America's ideas and what makes us exceptional or great. Don't hand that over to politicians, please. I work with politicians.
I agree, and to second his sentiments, you know, it's amazing the power of the media and what they can perpetrate against us. I mean, they've instigated this race conflict in the United States that is amazing. Just over the past few years, it's been instigated by Al Sharpton, it's been instigated by Jesse Jackson, it's been instigated by the president, it's been instigated primarily by the media. And what they do is they put black, they put and white against each other, and it's amazing. They put gay and straight against each other, and it's something that they get away with, and we shouldn't stand for that. You know, as Republicans, when we're suppressed, and they say, oh, the Republican parties, they don't let gays in. The Republican Party, no, they don't let women in. No. Women are Democrats. You know, says who? Says the media. I mean, it's amazing. And just to clarify my point, when the horrible shooting took place up in Charlotte a few weeks ago, or Charleston, when the media was the first one knocking on the door saying black versus white. But the same weekend, we saw, 20,000 people marching in unity? I mean, that's the American spirit. And for too long, the media gets away with just saying, okay, this is how it's going to be black and white, gay and straight, and male and female. And I don't think we should stand for that. And it's something that we should certainly battle moving into this election and say, listen, as Republicans, we're not going to take it. This is who we are. This is what we stand for, and we should be proud of it.
Well, thank you. Last question. We are a bunch of young professionals in this room. We all have to give an elevator speech. And in 20 seconds, why should somebody vote for a Republican?
If I were stuck in an elevator with somebody that looked like they might not be a Republican, I might say, well, have you thought about politics lately? And then I'd get right to it. I would say, if you're an optimistic, upbeat, positive person who thinks you can create more for yourself and your family than you think the government is able or willing to give you, you're a Republican.
I would say, did you look at your last paycheck? How much of it went to the government? When I saw my paycheck and I saw that high percentage was going to the government to support bums and people on welfare, that's when I got pissed off, and that's when I started voting for Republican. Because I believe that I should be able to keep what I make, and no one else should have the benefits of reaping my hard work.
Well, I'm just going to give you an example of what I say to people with a particular target market that I am trying to reach through political strategy. And sometimes I'll just straight up ask people.
That elevator's getting stuck.
Here it is, 10 seconds. Can you be more pro-black than pro-Democrat? And I ask them that, and we talk from there.
Wait, say that again.
Can you be more pro-black than pro-Democrat?
All right. That would start the dialogue.
Thank you very much. We have a round of applause. And we have brought a shirt. And there is a contest that we have come up with. Who is the most recent Republican